8 fighter jets, 600 miles into enemy airspace, flying so low their shadows raced alongside them on the desert floor. No radar detection, no escort. The Reagan White House had absolutely no idea it was happening until it was already over. The target was a nuclear reactor being built with one purpose: to wipe Israel off the map.
Saddam Hussein wanted a nuclear bomb. He had publicly said he wanted one to wipe Israel off the map. But Iraq didn't have the scientists or the technology to build one from scratch. What they did have was oil money, billions of it. So Saddam went shopping. And the seller he found wasn't some rogue state or black market arms dealer. It was France. Iraq and France had already built a close relationship. Saddam had been buying Mirage fighter jets and thousands of Renault vehicles from them. The two countries were deeply tied together commercially. So when Saddam came looking for a nuclear reactor, French Prime Minister Jacques Chirac was a willing partner. France would build Iraq a state-of-the-art nuclear reactor for $200 million. In return, Iraq handed out oil contracts, and French officials personally received financial benefits from the arrangement. France called it a civilian research reactor. Saddam named it Osirak, after Osiris, the Egyptian god of the dead. Scientists working inside the program had calculated it would take 2 to 3 bombs to kill 500,000 Israelis and destroy the country's major cities. And the rest of the world? Largely unbothered. American officials later admitted they saw the satellite photos of the reactor being built and simply didn't pay much attention to it.
Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, a Holocaust survivor, was paying very close attention. But he didn't go straight to a military option. He set a clear rule: try everything else first. So the Mossad went to work. They found out France was about to ship the reactor's core components and blew up the warehouse where they were stored. It delayed the program by 6 months. They identified the lead Egyptian nuclear scientist running the program from Paris. They tried to recruit him. He said no. So they sent a woman to his hotel room, and when he opened the door, they killed him. A witness in the hallway who could identify the agents was run over by a car and killed before she could speak to police. Over the years of construction, around a dozen scientists connected to the program died under suspicious circumstances. But none of it stopped the reactor. It kept being built. Eventually, the Mossad told Begin honestly, "We've done everything we can. The covert options are finished."
Israel almost couldn't pull this off at all until a revolution changed everything. When the Shah of Iran was overthrown in 1979, his government had already ordered 76 brand new American F-16 fighter jets. Obviously, those couldn't be delivered to the new hostile Iranian government. The US offered them to Israel instead, and Israel said yes immediately. The F-16 was the most advanced fighter jet in the world at that time. General David Ivry, who was tasked with planning the mission, realized this was the plane that could actually reach Baghdad and return. But it still required serious modifications. Extra fuel tanks were added under each wing. Everything non-essential was stripped out, including the electronic jamming pods pilots used to defend against enemy missiles, just to make the range work. These pilots would fly to Baghdad and back with 0 defensive countermeasures.
June 7, 1981. The jets took off from a secret Israeli airbase in the Sinai Desert, loaded to nearly twice their designed weight limit. They flew at 100 feet above the ground the entire way, low enough to stay invisible to radar. Over the Gulf of Aqaba, King Hussein of Jordan happened to be relaxing on his royal yacht. He looked up, saw 8 fighter jets screaming east directly overhead, and immediately knew what was happening. He radioed his military to warn Iraq that the Israelis were coming. The warning was sent. It never reached Baghdad in time. When the jets arrived over the reactor site, something almost unbelievable happened. The Iraqi radar was switched off. The anti-aircraft crews had gone to dinner. It was a Sunday, so the French technicians were off for the weekend. The shift change between day and night guards was happening at that exact moment. Every variable lined up at once. The pilots dove, dropped 16 bombs in under 2 minutes, and pulled out. The reactor dome was destroyed completely. Adjacent buildings were untouched. The nuclear fuel stored nearby was undamaged, so no radioactive contamination. 11 people died, 10 Iraqi soldiers killed by their own anti-aircraft fire, and 1 French technician who hadn't gone home for the weekend. All 8 Israeli pilots landed safely. The United Nations condemned Israel unanimously. Inside the Reagan White House, Vice President George Bush and Chief of Staff James Baker pushed hard for punitive action against Israel. But Reagan himself, when first told about the strike, said privately, "Boys will be boys." And Jacques Chirac, the man who built the reactor and who publicly condemned the attack, was privately relieved, according to the journalist who had investigated the original deal. 10 years later, Saddam invaded Kuwait. The US launched Desert Storm and crushed Iraq in weeks. Dick Cheney sent a satellite photo of the destroyed reactor to the Israeli general who had planned the mission. On the back, he wrote, "If it weren't for you, Desert Storm wouldn't have been a success."